What's up, guys? Robert Rule of Two Review here with a mostly spoiler-free look at The Wolf Among Us Episode 2. Alrighty, so I'm just going to dive right into this. As previously stated, and as I'm sure you know, the second episode for The Wolf Among Us finally came out today, February 4th, 2014. It is entitled Smoke and Mirrors. And if you'd seen any of my previous videos or even just kind of follow general gaming news, you might have noticed when they first announced just a couple of weeks ago that the game was going to be coming in early February, there was a little bit of a hubbub over the fact that Telltale had made it public that there was apparently some sort of behind-the-scenes issues going on at Telltale that had prevented the release of the game, of the episode of the game, I should say. It was initially slated for, November, December, near the end of the year last year. Didn't come out, fell off the grid. No one knew what was going on. All of a sudden, it resurfaced a few weeks ago, and they said, here it comes, beginning of February. So here it is, and the game is finally out. So I've been spending the last, I would say, hour and a half with the game. I know that the way these kind of, I guess you want to call them bite-sized episodes of these sort of ongoing games tend to be that a lot of people can play through each episode as quickly as that within an hour or an hour and a half. I'm kind of just not that kind of gamer. No matter what game I'm playing, if I'm given any sort of freedom as far as how I play through it, the speed and pace at which I do, if I have extra things to look at, extra places to go, stuff that I know I would be kind of straying from the beaten path, or, doing some things to try to give myself extra knowledge or understanding of the story or the environment of the characters, I'm going to do that. That's kind of how I like to play my games. I like for them to last as long as possible. And I don't want to say that I do that specifically to elongate the game. I do it because it's just naturally what I feel is what I should be doing. It's how I enjoy to play games, and I want to see everything that I can possibly reach that the game developers had decided to put in the game. And in the case of a lot of Telltale stuff, and this episode, both episodes of The Wolf Among Us so far, sure, you're always in these scenes where you know who you need to talk to, what you need to do, what item you need to pick up, and so forth. But there's always all sorts of things to look at, within any given room or scenario that you're put in. And before I go to where I know I'm going to need to go, or the person I'll need to talk to, I want to go look at every single item, pick it up, inspect it, talk to other people, just do whatever. I want to take advantage of every little interaction bubble that's going to show up in any scenario that I'm in. So anyway, just to kind of get to my early impressions of the game, like I said, I'm going to pretty much try to be fairly spoiler free. I've only played a little bit of it, and they are short episodes, so there's really not a whole lot to say right now. But I do want to say that so far, I'm loving it. I did a little bit of research on some of the early reviews that have showed up today too, and they were mostly really positive. I think Metacritic had it at, I got it right here. Metacritic has it at around 72, 79 or something. 79. So mostly good reviews. That's a fairly good score. I have no problem with that, at least as far as Metacritic goes. But I'm certainly enjoying it more than what I would consider a 79 to lead to. There were some really weird criticisms on Game Informer specifically. And I'm not going to quote their review here, but they mentioned, the idea of it feeling really incomplete, and it's just a bridge episode, and it's still good. They still gave it a fairly okay score. They said the world and stuff is still very solid and compelling, which I agree with, but they said that the bridge feeling nature of the episode kind of held it back. To me, that's kind of silly. It's episodic, and beyond being episodic, it's only the second of 5 episodes. We are literally not even halfway through. I don't quite know what anyone would want out of any of these in-between episodes. I feel like, correct me if I'm wrong, guys, but I feel that by definition, episodes 2, 3, and 4 can only be considered bridge episodes because they are, collectively bridging the beginning of the story, episode 1, with the end of the story, episode 5. I don't really know why this would be mentioned as if to be a surprise or even a negative impact on the game. However, that's just the way it is. I fully went into this expecting a bridge kind of experience. I know it's only episode 2 of 5. I understand math, so that wasn't a surprise. And so far, I feel like I've probably gone through about half of the game so far. I'm going to show you some of the footage you should be watching is fairly early on. You shouldn't be able to hear the dialogue, even if you can see some of my dialogue choices. So it's not really going to be giving away a lot. Hopefully you've even already played it if you're watching this, or at least intend to. If anything, my only hope could be that if you haven't played it and you're watching this, that this helps make you want to play it, because you really, really should. So it's interesting in the sense that, so episode 1 left off with an amazing, shocking cliffhanger. I mean, one of the best cliffhangers I've seen in anything, be it a TV show, a movie, or a video game. It was a really, really solid moment. Totally caught me off guard. I screamed at my computer screen when I saw it, like, oh my God, no way, what the fuck? That was crazy. And then it ended, and I was like, well, damn it. I guess I'll just wait a little bit until episode 2. And so here we go. The beginning of the episode does something pretty neat to, again, I'm just trying to choose my words carefully because I don't want to spoil it, but it does something very neat to further emphasize exactly what that cliffhanger moment was. I mean, they basically give you some answers over what's happening, and it becomes at least so far in episode 2, the motivation of exactly what's carrying, Bigby Wolf and his other band of people with him, who I will not spoil who those people are, but it's carrying Bigby forward and, giving him motivation to, solve these murders and find out exactly what's going on in the town, and that's the really cool thing. Something else I've really been enjoying so far is we're slowly getting a better idea of how these fables, which the name are the characters who live in this world and that we're basically following, how they try to live normal lives, even more so than the first episode. I think that's what's really neat about the world that's being created here. Even though, yes, I know this is an adaptation of a graphic novel or a comic series, something like that. But I'm experiencing it through Telltale's game. So it's very cool because they did establish that early on in the episode 1, but we're getting a little bit deeper into it now and seeing, understanding a little bit better how people understand the different jobs and the different, people who are fables living within this world and how they're trying to keep themselves hidden and all that stuff. And, just the way everyone has their own sort of, reputation and, interacting with each other is it's just fantastic. I mean, Telltale does really good with that anyway. Episode 1 set this up, and they're really just kind of further delivering on that based on what episode 1 did to episode 2. And so now the murder mystery that we're following has turned into quite a chase, which we knew it would. To set up the murder mystery so early and just in episode 1, and we knew we had 5 episodes to go. We knew we'd have to get a lot of exposition in episode 2. That's usually what the middle chapter of any kind of story or the act 2 of any movie is really going to be about. Is that the further exposition, really diving into the motivation. A lot of times it's where, in your typical Act 2, for example, it's where a lot of things are going to fall apart. Things can start off really strong and okay in the beginning of your story for your characters, but somewhere near the middle, close to the end, things get really bad. They get really tough. That's when, a surprise character will die. Excuse me, that's when you find out that Darth Vader is Luke's father, and then of course he loses his hand, and oh shit, what are we gonna do until the next film? So we know that this story is so far leading into that idea. I feel like I can already kind of see and get some ideas of where we might be going moving forward. But of course I'm not going to share that because it would be a spoiler for this episode, not to mention if I was right, I wouldn't want to give anyone ideas that could spoil just by mistake, just by accident, because you would hear me say it if it was right already. So I don't know. If you like Telltale stuff, if you liked The Walking Dead, there's no reason to think that you wouldn't like Wolf Among Us. I know it's not quite as popular, well known as The Walking Dead as a brand name, but the first game and this one so far as well, the first episode and second episode, I should say, they got really good reviews. It's getting pretty good praise, and it seems like a lot of people are familiar with it, into it, picking it up and playing it. So that's really exciting. I made a few posts about it earlier, and I got some response from some people who I knew were gamers, but surprised to hear that they were familiar with this and even played episode 1. So I was like, kind of did a little yes, like that's good. People are playing this. This is amazing. Telltale right now is just knocking it out of the park. I love everything they're doing. Walking Dead is just one of my favorite things in the world. Wolf Among Us is a fantastic companion game to that universe, and it just operates and plays and feels so great, and I'm excited to see what they do with Game of Thrones. That's could be really cool. There was talk that they're going to want to do something in the James Bond side, and how fucking radical would that be? So please do it. They could do anything. They could do Jurassic Park, E.T., I don't care. Make it. You guys would do great. So yeah, ultimately, like I said, it's tough for me to say too much because I haven't finished it, so I can't really give it like a full review or anything. I just wanted to give my first impressions because this first hour and a half I've done has been really, really good. The last thing I'll touch on is I didn't really foresee this coming, and nor would I have expected myself to enjoy it as much as I am, but I am enjoying this side of it. Is that you're actually this one seems much less interactive and far more cinematic. And that may seem like an oxymoron because if you're familiar with these games or Telltale style, they're pretty damn cinematic from the get-go. I mean, they are mostly cinematic. You get the little moments where you're allowed to walk around and do some investigating with, whatever the context of the story is of the game you're playing. All the Walking Dead stuff and episode 1 of Wolf Among Us had a lot of that stuff where you're left to your own devices to kind of figure some stuff out and hunt around and interact with things and talk to people at your own will. However, like I said, I feel like I'm halfway through episode 2 here. By the way, it's called Smoke and Mirrors. I don't think I had a chance to say that. And if I did, then I'm just repeating myself. But, being about halfway into this, I really haven't done a whole lot of that. I really am kind of just watching the game go from scene to scene, like a movie or a television show, and getting invested in the conversations and the motivations going on between the characters and, of course, the investigation of the murder. And, picking my typical dialogue choices just like any other Telltale game. And, I could see how some people might not enjoy that as much. And if I would have maybe known that going into it, I might have had the opinion of, ooh, that doesn't sound as good as what I would normally want from Telltale. However, I've actually really been enjoying it this way, to tell you the truth. It feels more of a presentation in the sense it feels more like the game and the story is being presented to me, not that I'm creating it or going through it kind of at my own pace and, how I would do it, which is always a wonderful thing to do. And normally I would prefer it that way. But like I said, the way it is being presented to me this way, as I'm kind of just viewing it and helping the story along more so than previous episodes, I'm really liking it. I got to give them props. Maybe this is one of the reasons why some of the reviews, are resting down in the 7s and stuff, not quite the 8s and 9s for this game so far. Not like 7 is bad, but it's lower than the previous entry. Maybe it's just because some people really aren't as into that and they don't really prefer their Telltale games or any games that way, and I guess that's fine. I'm someone who very surprisingly kind of struggled to get into Heavy Rain, and I never finished it. And I get that some people love it. Some of my best friends just like worship the hell out of that game, and they give me crap because I didn't really like it too much. And that was a game that kind of does. So my complaints are that, Heavy Rain, let me think of how to reword this. So what I'm enjoying about The Wolf Among Us was the very aspects that I didn't quite enjoy about Heavy Rain. So that's kind of the confusion and why I struggle to sort of put that into words, is that it doesn't make sense. It seems like they are juxtaposing each other, and yet for some reason that's just how it's working. I mean, in this game, in this series, with these characters and the way Telltale does it, it just feels a little bit better to me. Nothing against Heavy Rain. I always acknowledged it was great for what it was. It just didn't speak to me the way I was hoping and the way it did for a lot of people. That's fine. That's why we have different games to play, so no big deal there. But with The Wolf Among Us and with episode 2 here, Smoke and Mirrors, it's being handled exactly how I would want it to be handled, so that it doesn't feel restrictive to me to just watch the game sort of come at me more often than giving me the freedom to roam around and play it at my own pace. I'm really enjoying just, being invested in the story. I care about the story, the murder, and these characters. So just watching them banter back and forth and giving me the occasional dialogue options that are moving the story in the direction that I feel comfortable with, it's totally satisfying everything I need right now. So where some people may find a problem with it, and I wouldn't fault you for that, I happen to think it's a strength or a benefit to this episode. I'm really enjoying that. I definitely say I wouldn't want most of season 2 or the other episodes to be this way. I hope we get back into still, playing it more often than not, interacting with the game. So that's going to be interesting to see going forward with episode 3. But, like I said, long story short, that part's not bothering me. So that's kind of my whole summary of the game so far. Ultimately, I'm really, really enjoying it. I don't want to, give it a score or anything because I'm only halfway through, like I said. But if you like Telltale stuff, if you liked episode 1 of The Wolf Among Us, of course, you're probably already invested, but you'd be foolish not to play this game. Whether you've played episode 1 or not, please, if you're watching this, if you're curious, it is so worth your time and money to go and get, invest in this series. Buy the season pass, buy the episodes individually, whatever you do, you should definitely be playing it. So, that's my thoughts so far is episode 2, Wolf Among Us, pretty badass. Well, alrighty guys, thanks as always for tuning in. I hope you felt compelled to want to pick up the game and play The Wolf Among Us episode 2. So of course, if you like what I'm doing, then you can feel free to subscribe, like, or share the video. And as always, thanks for tuning in. I will catch you next time.